Revisiting Blonde after 3 years has felt like catching up with an old friend, one who knows me better than I know myself. It's an album that's constantly changing, not because the music itself evolves, but because we evolve as listeners. The emotions Frank Ocean captures loss, joy, love, and grief these are universal, but how we relate to them, they shift as we grow. Back then, it was about the thrill of music, the wordplay, the melodies, the variation in drum patterns. Now, it feels like something deeper, an exploration of identity, vulnerability, and the question of what does it mean to be human. When I first heard Blonde, my favorite tracks were Nike's, Nights, and Self Control. I loved how Frank balanced humor with vulnerability. He would often weave both into the same breath. Like, for example, the opening lines of Self Control. They feel both tender and raw, capturing the pain of unrequited love. Nike's, it starts with satire and materialistic critique, but it shifts into a somber realization of societal dehumanization and how that reflects Frank and how he relates to it and how he finds himself looking in a mirror. It's a pattern that repeats throughout the album, beginning with surface level observations before diving into deeply introspective themes. But Blonde isn't just about vulnerability, it's about deconstructing masculinity. In Nike's, Frank critiques the transactional nature of love and the expectations placed on men to provide, such as in relationships, whether it's emotionally, materially, or even physically.
These bitches want Nike. They looking for a check. Tell them it ain't likely. All you want is Nikes.
Here he sings, pointing out the superficiality of some relationships. Yet he immediately undercuts that bravado with
But if you need dick, I got you.
the duality reflects the societal pressures men face to appear strong, self sufficient, and emotionally detached, even when those expectations contradict their true selves. As the album unfolds, Frank dismantles these expectations entirely. In solo, he openly reflects on the theme of isolation and the emotional weight of navigating life alone. He rejects the stoicism traditionally associated with masculinity, embracing instead the complexities of his emotional experience. This vulnerability is carried further into White Ferrari and Siegfried, where Frank expresses a longing for simplicity, a life free from chaos and expectation. In Siegfried, he admits,
Maybe I'm a fool to settle for a place with some nice views. I'm not brave.
here he acknowledges his desires for peace and the fear of pursuing it. These moments of introspection make Blonde feel deeply personal, yet universally relatable. What's especially striking is how Blonde balances individual collective experience. Tracks like Ivy and Pink White, they feel more like personal journal entries. They're intimate reflections on love and loss. Ivy is a heartbreak anthem, raw and unfiltered, while Pink White, co produced by Pharrell Williams, it feels almost dreamlike as Frank reflects on fleeting moments, on beauty and connection. But then there are songs like Nights that shift the focus outward, exploring themes of time, identity, and survival. The beat switches halfway through Nights. This mirrors the transition from external performance to internal reflection, encapsulating the album's central tension between who we are and who we want to be. Thematically, Blonde reminds me of Moonlight, one of my favorite films. Both works explore identity, masculinity, and vulnerability, They challenge societal expectations of strength and performance. In Moonlight, the protagonist struggles with his sense of self, making choices that align with societal norms rather than who he truly is and his identity. Similarly, with Frank Ocean's Blonde, questions what it means to be a man. Is masculinity tied to strength? And if so, is strength just a societal construct? Songs like Good Guy and Solo, Reprise, offer glimpses into Frank's exploration of these questions. They peel back layers of bravado to reveal the raw humanity beneath it. As the album progresses, Frank reflects on his own personal struggles. He includes the sense of isolation and vulnerability that come with self discovery. In Godspeed, he offers a message of unconditional love and acceptance, and he sings,
I let go of my claim on you. It's a free world.
This is a song about release, letting go of the past and embracing the present. This sense of closure carries into the final track, Futura Free, where Frank looks back on his journey, reflecting on family, fame, and the therapy he finds in music. The song feels both introspective while at the same time forward looking, a fitting conclusion to an album that constantly shifts between past and present. For me, Blonde is not just an album, it's an evolving conversation. When I first listened to it, I was drawn to the sound, the production, the melodies, the subtle shift in tone. Now, I find myself drawn to the questions that it raises, such as about identity, about love, about loss, and what it means to be vulnerable. Frank Ocean doesn't provide answers, and maybe that's the point. Instead, he invites us to sit with the discomfort, to embrace the complexity of our emotions, and to find beauty in the imperfections of life through perspective. Returning to Blonde has been an emotional experience. It's reminded me why I fell in love with Frank Ocean's music in the first place. It's not about finding comfort or happiness, it's about being seen, being understood, and being reminded that you're not alone. And maybe that's why Blonde resonates so deeply. It refuses to offer easy answers, but instead reminds us to keep asking these questions.